We're on a journey, and it's just getting started. All right, everybody. I am Jack Murphy. We are back. We are live. This is the Jack Murphy Live podcast. Today, I've got an amazing guest, somebody that I grew up with a little bit, but now that we're older, it's not that big of an age difference. I watched the guy on MTV. I've watched his career over time, and he is the podfather. He's the king of podcasting. The one and only Adam Curry is going to be joining me in just a second. We've got a lot to talk about, current events, politics, podcasting, culture, you name it. We're going to get to it. Lots of commenters already in the chat. Love to see it. But before we get there, I just want to remind everybody about Jack Brunch, you guys. Jack Brunch is the one and only brunch tour, the right social for those of us on the right side of things. It's been an amazing time. We've been in New York City. We've been in Tampa. We've been in Chicago. We've been in Nashville, Austin. Missed you in Austin, Adam. We just came back from Northern California, and we are going to be in Denver this weekend on December the 5th. So please go to jacked, Jacked brunch.com. Get some tickets and come on out. We had like 85 people in Northern California. It was a wonderful day by the bay. Going to be awesome, but enough about that. Oh, also follow me on Twitter. You know the deal, guys. Here we go. We've got the one and only, the podfather, the guy who probably made all this worthwhile or happen and is pushing the future, Adam Curry. Here we go. Adam Curry, how you doing, my man?
Jack Murphy, I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Good to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Had to get that. I had to get that out of the way.
100.
I had to get that out of the way because it is true. I do remember when my dad got cable, and I do remember when we got MTV, and I do remember watching you, your baby face and your big hair, doing the countdowns and Headbangers Ball, which was pretty much the coolest thing in all of media then. And you're probably doing the coolest thing in all of media right now too. So that's an interesting thread to pull on. But I was doing some research before the show, and not only did you pave the way with MTV back when it was cool, not only are you paving the way today with podcasting, but in the middle there, you started corporations, had thousands of people working for you. It's just an epic thread. And the thing I wanted to start off with is like you went from there to here with this big thing in the middle. You've been in many, many circumstances, wore all kinds of shoes. I bet you wore suits and stuff at sometimes.
I did at one point. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I've been there myself in all different circumstances. I wanted to ask you, like, where were you the most comfortable? Where has Adam Curry been the most comfortable, the most you, feeling like you had the most impact, the happiest, the most satisfied, balancing the finances, all that stuff? Let's just talk about the story, man. It's a great story.
I would say the No Agenda Show and No Agenda Nation and the tribe, the community, the cult, the group, the circle, the vortex that we've built up around that's built itself, which has taught me how to work within. There's a term for it which I just recently learned, and it really applies to No Agenda, but also to podcasting 2.0. And that's a DAO, a DAO, a distributed autonomous organization. And that's truly what the No Agenda, it is a DAO. We might as well just face it. We can get into all the details of that. But to now be working with another DAO of sorts, although we haven't really collected or we're not really collecting money or funds or anything of that nature, we have a common success goal in mind. And it is actually tied together by Bitcoin. It's funny enough. But working in that type of environment with people and knowing enough about all of their jobs, what they do, is where I thrive. Because I can do none of them, or I could limp along. But understanding what everybody does, it makes me so happy to then be a part of a conversation with people who are building something, whether it's just a community of people or whether it's products or services. That's really where I'm most happy. That only works for me, turns out, if I don't have a boss. And that's very difficult for most. It's, you have to take some risks to get there. And I did. And I'm very proud of getting to where I am personally, where I live and die, eat or starve by the job and the performance that I deliver to multiple audiences, multiple groups of people, and 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 I know that if as long as I'm providing my maximum value, that value will come back, and it's a real kind of theremin type, holistic type of thinking. But as it turns out, if you ask people to support the work you're doing, they will actually do it, and so no longer being in the mindset of I have to have the most followers, the most listeners, the most this or that, but how do I find the most valuable people to be in communication with? And when you find that, and this value just keeps flowing of information, uh, of friendships, of supply, just so many different things. That is a happy spot to be in. And I really kind of became really good 6.5 years ago when I met my wife. That's when shit really accelerated. That
The
really, that
keeper.
yeah. Well, to me, I work really well in partnership with people, and we have the true yin and yang, male female model that I fit very well in, and I love it.
You touched on a lot of things that I want to go back and dig it deep on, but since you brought it up, I'll share my side of the same story. I'm getting married to my longtime girlfriend next September. We've been together. We'll have been together then almost
Proficiat.
8 years. Thank you. And I'm guessing that's Dutch for congratulations. Is that right? What was that? I didn't even know what the word was. I was just like, thank you.
You're absolutely right. It slipped out in Dutch, and I thought to myself, "What? Why did I said proficiat?" Which is what you say in the Netherlands. You're always congratulating everybody. If it's your brother's birthday, I say, "Hey, happy birthday with your brother." So so,
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, that was just a thing. Yes, congratulations is what I meant to say.
Thank you. I mean, look, it felt right. It felt right. So, perfect. We're getting married. It'll be 8 years then. And we are exactly what you just described. We are an incredible partnership. We are yin and yang, a masculine and feminine. We are yin and yang in the business side as well. She quit her job as a hairstylist. She's now full-time working with me on the show inside the Liminal Order. She does all the scheduling, all the planning, all the events for Jacked Brunch, right? So we're traveling all around the
Mm-hmm.
country doing these events on Sundays. They've been fantastic. And she does all the planning. She picks the spots, negotiates all the contracts, makes sure everything is perfect. And I just show up wearing a suit, sometimes mismatched shoes, as we were talking about before the show. People who know about that. And I shake hands and have mimosas, and it goes really well. And she takes care of all of it. And it's a beautiful symbiotic relationship that can really bring your life to a much higher level than you were before. And I did a little bit of background on you, and I've had similar experiences in terms of I was married, I was divorced, I had a longtime girlfriend, we broke up, and now in my mind this is the keeper. And I read jokingly that your partner calls your current wife, or the your wife forever, the keeper as well.
Yes.
And I'm feeling the same thing too. The community side that you mentioned, and again, 5 pages of agenda out the window. Let's just go for it. The community side is really powerful, and I feel it as well. And I want you to just explain a little bit more, please, about the value, because the first time people hear value, I think the first thing people think is like money. But no, you elaborated on information, relationships, community. Has there been something about building this community, the No Agenda community, that surprised you? Are there things that you've like leaned into and gotten more out of that you weren't expecting? And then maybe take that and think about, telling us where you see it going, and what the power of this community will be for you and everybody involved in moving forward.
Wow. Yeah. First
They're
of all,
launching points.
your description of your relationship with your keeper is very similar, almost right down to the mimosas. And she's the one that's like tweeting Jack Murphy. She's the one that has straightened me out when it comes to bill paying and finances and stacks of papers and shit like that. Brought order. So all of that is very, very recognizable. And I love how that works. When it comes to the community, so Dvorak and I early on decided, and it was probably just, we had jobs, we were doing stuff. This was just us chatting. We wanted to, you know, it turned out to be a little more work than just chatting at a certain point. We had to do all kinds of research and looking at stuff and watching a lot of different media, because we deconstruct media inherently. And we said, well, you guys really got to pay us. This has got to be worthwhile. We need some value back. We weren't quite using those terms at the time. Um, but we actually said, made comparisons such as, well, you just listened to 2 hours of this podcast. What's it worth to you? I mean, you could go to a movie, take a date, have something to drink, some popcorn, sit in a room for an hour and a half. It's a 2-hour deal. It cost you $50. Was our performance worth $50? And we just said, it's open to whatever you want to do. Open source, I think we might have even said at one point. And, there's always a suggested $5 a month, or, these are all Silicon Valley pricing mechanisms, like the Beatles. I Want to Hold Your Hand, probably the best love song ever written. It's like, no, 99 cents. Hey, I'll pay $99 every single time to play, but I'm not allowed to. The pricing is built in by Silicon Valley. So we left that open, and a lot of people sent us $5, and, some sent us 50, and a number of them sent 500. Okay, now there's something happening. So turns out if you ask people, they will actually do that. And if you position it as, I'm giving you something valuable, but only you can determine what that value is, if it's nothing, then you really should turn it off. There's no value at all, but okay, maybe it's just wallpaper, and that's fine. So you find no value. You don't want to return any that's cool. And I'm talking monetary still at this point. People, John and I both, he also comes from radio. We come from a lot of media, so we understand audiences. And, a lot of the radio show stuff that I was trained in throughout my entire career, like location stuff. People love it when the morning zoo goes on location at Macy's and sits outside, and people can go watch. It's like NBC Today Show. They also go outside the studio. People love that kind of stuff. And you learn to listen to the audience. And the feedback that I got doing radio was, of course, mainly telephone. That's the only feedback we had. Mainly people calling in to try and be caller 100 to win some stupid tickets. But also MTV. I mean, MTV, I had a dressing room filled with, at any given moment, 8 to 10 postal sacks. I mean, these are, I don't know, 4 feet high, maybe, filled with letters and postcards. And I solicited stuff too, and the audio guy and I would just take turns reading mail, see what people were sending in. But you really learn what's going on in people's heads. And probably more accentuated when I kind of discovered the internet for myself back in 87 or 88. And it was really hard to get on because, you had to have a dial-up account and SLIP or PPP and a TCP stack. And then you had to, fire up the thing once you had your remote shell access and all this. This is all before web. You had Gopher. But who was online were kids at universities who were watching MTV, who also didn't really, agree with what the top 20 videos were. They had a whole different idea, and it didn't count for the ratings, funny enough, at the time. So I learned that what we're doing programming wise is not necessarily what people want or how they feel, or there's just a lot of different things. And this feedback loop was very interesting to me. And it became very direct. I had email really, really early on. It was all kinds of different bulletin boards, you name it. So when you say, we're just going to make this all open source, and we went to the extent of, you can do anything you want except with our faces. Actually, we didn't even say that in the beginning, or our names. And everything else, it's not patented, it's not trademarked. Actually, No Agenda is trademarked, but you have a free license to use it in any of the acceptable manner. So we don't care. I had learned around that same time the importance of structured data, namely XML, and RSS feeds are a version of structured data. And I kind of coined the term show notes early on in the process of podcasting. And show notes have never really had a home in the RSS feed. It's kind of, where does it go in the description? What is it exactly? What do you put in there? And throughout the years, I, with Dave Jones, have developed a system that takes all of our show notes, including articles we discuss, clips, all this stuff, and it compiles it into really an outline, a rundown that I can use and change on the fly as we're doing the show, but out the back end poops all of this XML structured data. And early listeners, a lot of who we would call sysadmins early on, now we call them dudes named Ben, which has a whole nother reason. And we also have dudettes named Bernadette. They love structured data and they love building stuff. And so all of a sudden we had search engines and we had a whole website, multiple websites. We had people going off and building the noagendabooks.com. And we just promoted it all. It's like, hey, if you got something, we'll promote it. Then came the art generator. This was an astounding thing. And this is where we really showed, already we're seeing the 3 T's, as Tina, my wife would say, who is a communications professional, C-suite level, although she's semi-retired. He says, people will never give you anything until you ask. And that's the number one reason why people don't give. And really, you're asking for time, talent, or treasure. So we've covered the treasure. Now we've got time and talent, which kind of overlap. So people building websites, people setting up different versions, torrent streams. We set up a Mastodon server 3 years ago. I set it up myself. It got out of control. So boop, there's someone who pops up and says, I'll run it for you, no problem. And we have no deals, no contracts, no nothing. No agenda shop. We've always said, we don't really care. Just make a donation if you make some money out of it. So No Agenda Shop saw the art generator. Let me go back to that. The art generator was set up by Paul Couture, and it's just a place where you can submit album art for that podcast. So if you're listening to the stream live, and a couple thousand people listen live, including artists who are just sitting at their desk or at home, or maybe they're primed and pumped and this is all they do, I don't know. They start creating album art for that episode. So we are one of the only shows that has consistently great new fascinating art for each new episode. And we now have 10, 15, 20 pieces to choose from sometimes. And this has just become its own culture. They're competing. They love that we critique them, because we do. We'll say, here's why we didn't choose it, and here's why, or here's why we chose this. It's become something really important. People, it's a lot of ownership. And so that just begets more of that. And now those pieces of art are showing up on mugs, T-shirts, hats, hoodies at No Agenda Shop. And they work out a deal with the artists. So this is all this expanding stuff. And if I really had to list all of the websites and services and things that people have done and that are still running throughout the years, with the most recent being the meetups, this is, it reminds me a little bit of what you're doing and what we're seeing in different groups, where it used to be, if I was traveling somewhere or John was traveling somewhere, we'd do a meetup, and then we'd organize it through meetups.com, and people would show up, and it was actually kind of fun because they'd give donations on the spot. We'd have ceremonies if someone reached a certain level, a knighting or a daming, but really just hang out with all kinds of different people, age group, social economic background, race, religion, but with one thing in common: the show, or No Agenda, or the media deconstruction, but something that attracts them to this. And then one of our producers started setting up noagendameetups.com, and now there's a meetup with at least 10 people almost every single day of the year around the world. And from Macau to Tel Aviv to Amsterdam to Buffalo. It's just everywhere. And they send in reports of just who was there and what they discussed and had a good time. And so it's its own thing. And when you have that, you get so many professionals who now have been trained, because we've called them producers almost from day one. If you hear something that you're that guy or that you're that gal who knows about this topic, you have an obligation. You got to write us, you got to contact us and tell us what you know so we can share it. And that has become the resource of all resources. It's what Dave Weiner used to call sources go direct. It's still difficult for people to, write about their experiences, post it, etc. But if they have a central place where they can kind of send it in, and we can, and I'm a data manager. That's all I do all day is sift through emails and messages, and where can I find the goodies? And people clip stuff for us now, but they send stuff with time codes. it's a real production. It does not exist without John and Adam. It does not exist without any of the other pieces. And it just floats on and grows bigger and bigger. And then what really taught me so much in hindsight, but in moving forward, is when we got into Corona, which coincided with me appearing on Joe Rogan, who completely re-upped my credentials. Thank you, Joe Rogan. I'm seriously forever grateful for that. Then all of a sudden people started listening and saying, hey, wait a minute, the one thing that is the problem here is the media is full of shit. And so, and that's what these guys actually do is pull that apart. And, and then how that just accelerated 2-3 times the interactions, the size of the audience, but also the personal notes. Everyone who like, I know that with this community you have built up around this show and other things in the Liminal Order, you're getting notes about people going through really hard times, family, personal, friends, job, conscience, religious, and people are just looking for some guidance. And it's not that we can provide any guidance, but we bring in other voices. You're not alone is the message. You're not alone, even if it's like 5 people in this community. You're not alone, and that's what I think the future of media is. We still haven't been able to crack the nut of saying that's just a narrative that you're seeing in the mainstream, and really not a lot of people are really watching it or consuming it, but it still is official and still seeps through. And if anything, we talk about their messaging too much and are helping them propagate it when there's really no need for that. So I don't even know where the question was or how I got to this place. I'm sorry. You gotta throw something in my head because I'll just keep rapping.
Man, it's awesome. And it's funny, as I'm listening to you, I'm like prioritizing and deprioritizing things I want to address, come back to, discuss, dig down deeper on. But the first reaction, and believe me, there's like 50 things that I would like to branch off from what you said, but uh, you're right, man. I get emails and not phone calls, emails and DMs and private messages and chats and notifications constantly of people who are going through hard times, who are seeking out change or having change forced upon them,
Mm-hmm.
who are looking to change their own lives, who are looking to just share with their change, with my change, who are just looking to say thank you. I mean, people, that's Rosie, by the way. She's a guest star on the show. She makes an appearance
It's
around
okay.
now.
We have Phoebe, who has not let herself be known yet, but she sometimes does the same.
Yeah, the post must be the postman coming around these days. I can hear all the dogs in the neighborhood barking. But what strikes me is the authenticity, the genuineness, if this is a word, in people's desire to be connected and to feel as though that they're not alone, and to be grateful and to say thank you. And man, I catch a lot of shit online. Like, I got whole troll armies after me, websites dedicated to taking me down, all these terrible things, and people are really
Sure.
mean. But it's outnumbered 100 to 1 by the positive private messages that I get. And people, you've changed my life. And bro, I did not change your life. You changed your life. I was just there along at the same time as you did it. And I'm honored to be a part of it. And there's so many things we could talk about, but like
That's
struck,
actually
that struck me
just
the
so you know
most.
that is actually exactly the same. We have a thing with MTV. It's because we lived in that era at that moment when we were going from the telephone is a thing that has a wire connected to the wall and the television has rabbit ears, and it was now being reversed. And the music videos, in particular Headbangers Ball, I would say, was a magical period that no one can, if you weren't there, you can't understand it. But it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just Metallica, and it was everything. It was the combination of all those beautiful elements, but it changed you because you changed,
Right.
whatever you were exposed to. And you probably felt like, hey, I'm not the only pissed off kid
Right.
who wants to go.
Yeah. It was truly magic, because I mean, you weren't cool if you weren't listening to and watching Headbangers Ball. you weren't cool unless you knew the latest tracks that weren't being played widely on the radio, but you could get them from Adam Curry late night. And there was a community there, right? So you've seen since you started in this biz, and I, I don't know how old you were on Headbangers Ball, but you look a little younger then than you do now. And
Yeah, thanks.
so and that hair, dude, that hair.
Hey, I wake up every day and I say, thank you, hair gods. Thank you for still being there. I would not look good without hair. I'm very, very happy. Very happy with
congratulations to you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately there was a community built up around there. So you've seen the power of the content-based community and what it can do for people. And is there something you think built into us that's searching to be to identify in with a group? Is it just like you think it's physical, or you think it's of the time or of the moment? You've seen it in each element of your life, people opting into what you're doing and wanting to be a part of and wanting to associate with you. Is that, are you tapping into something built into everybody? Are you particularly good at it? What have your reflections on this been over the years?
I think so. I think that there is something that you can tap into. It's you're probably were most exposed to it with concerts. You go to a concert and there you just see, especially like in the 80s and 90s, the big stadium concerts, before it became a little too. I mean, it really over commercialized, but it was just kind of like a football. You go to a concert and it felt like a football game, except there was just a stage and you looked around and like, wow, and all these people are singing the same song. And yeah, so storytelling, sitting around the campfire, commiserating with each other. I think that's undeniable within the human species, that's really important to us. And I think you can show by looking at the opposite when we locked people down and put them into isolation, not just physical isolation, but social isolation. We actually punish people with social isolation by deplatforming, etc. That shows you that's probably one of the worst punishments you can give someone. It borders on inhumane. Yet, and I think that we know it's really bad because he got deplatformed. Wow, that sucks, man. You're out of the fucking group. Now is it really true? No, it's just a construct, but it'll feel real to everybody. So conversely, tapping into that and saying, yeah, you're part of this group. Why are you part of this group? Because you've got a 10 Satoshis, because you listen to this podcast. You're in, bro. That love is something that is just, maybe because it's not contaminated. That's another thing that is really important for what I do, what I do with Dvorak, but also with Podcasting 2.0, but also with MoFax. It's another great podcast. Is no advertising. If you're really just doing value for value and people are sending you time, talent, and treasure based upon what value they can return and what value they get out of the product, you are so free to speak and to try things and to push and experiment. And and with disastrous results sometimes, but not that an advertiser is no meetings is what I'm saying. No fucking meetings. I don't have to stop and think about what I'm going to say. I just don't. And that, while you have to be careful, because in real life that doesn't always fly. You do have to think of social circumstances sometimes. But actually, it makes me that makes me free. It makes me free to be able to speak your mind. That's what it is. That's a big part of freedom.
It is a big part of freedom, and as Jordan Peterson and others have really stressed over the last several years. Hello, Rosie. Stressed over the last several years is that I used to fret about shit like the dog barking on the show, and then I was like, wait, nobody is tuning into this because we're fucking CNN. Like that is not the case. So go ahead, Rosie.
It humanizes everything.
Yeah. I don't even know what I was talking about now. Oh, Jordan Peterson, expressing yourself.
Right.
Yeah, that you if you cannot express yourself, that is a real form of tyranny and torture.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are feeling it, and it's something that I hear from people all the time, especially when they cross over the final barrier into becoming a member inside the Liminal Order, where we have private messaging and our in-person meetups and all these workshops that we do. I mean, we do like 15 different workshops a month. And when I say workshop, I mean like I'm there, we're there, small groups working on personal issues, building businesses, doing initiatives, like really making things happen. One of the first things that they say is just like, wow, man, I can speak my mind finally. I can finally just share, because even if you live in a red state, even if who knows where you are, the people next door to you may not share your values. The people down the street may not share your values. And you can run into people and you get excited about hanging out with them, and maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. And then they're like, oh, and then these fucking Trumpers, they won't take the vaccine and we should just gas them all. And you're like, okay, well, there it goes. Right. And we also all know friends who 5 years ago were perfectly sane, perfectly normal people who've had their brains captured by the mind virus out there, and now have turned into complete psychopaths who think that you're actually the Nazi tyrannical guy, you know.
Are you familiar with Professor Matthias de Smet and his mass formation analysis of the situation?
I am not.
This is a Belgian professor. I promote him as much as I can. Matthias de Smet, Desmet. And he's been on a number of other podcasts, but so actually, without telling his whole story, there is a psychological condition that is a mass hypnosis, which he believes, and he has, I think, proven that we are in. And in the mass formation, which can only be brought on by an onset of free-floating anxiety, isolation, all the things that were perfect. We had all the perfect conditions. People going into lockdowns already depressed, see the number of SSRIs, et cetera, being consumed and prescribed. He says in that situation, which is similar to clinical hypnosis, where you can actually perform open heart surgery on someone, and there are lots of this happens. Oh yeah, this is very common is not true, but people who are allergic to certain, to anesthesia, they have absolutely done all kinds of procedures under hypnosis, and it's possible. Professional hypnotists can do this. So 30% of the population is in fact under that hypnosis, and we have to include the so-called leaders, our politicians, Fauci, these kinds of people. And you can tell them the sky is purple, and they will say, I will, the other way around. They will. It doesn't matter what reality you show to them. They will say the sky is purple because that's what they believe at that moment. The leaders become even more narrowly focused and, in fact, totalitarian, which you can see because the totalitarian state never works out. Dictatorship, yeah, but totalitarian, everyone starts eating themselves. It always ends ugly. Then there's 30% which just don't get captured. The programming doesn't work on them. It just doesn't happen for whatever reason. And then we have 40% that will always just go along with the group. So that 40% is, I think, what slowly starts to say, hey, wait a minute, hold on a second. Hey, wait a minute, I thought this Rittenhouse thing, I thought it was they killed black guys. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. Oh, I got lied. And then, then there's an opening and people may start to shift over. So I'm careful, like calling people deranged, etc. They have been mass hypnotized. And purposeful or not, it's a fact. And you cannot, there's no data, nothing will change their mind. They cannot feel the knife. In fact, the crazier things you tell them to do, the more they believe in it, i.e. no mask, 2 masks, 3 masks. That I think was pure test just to see who was really in it. That part, that drove me crazy. Like, no. Now you're just testing us.
They don't call you the crackpot for nothing, huh?
Mine as well.
Mine as well. Is that from the show too? I mean, because that's a meme that I remember from the old days.
Well,
mine as well. Yeah.
Early on, we were talking about the Hillary assassination group, also known as HAG, and how the Clinton hit list, the body count, it was big 10, 12 years ago, and we were always laughing about it. And then we'd go look at these cases like, oh my God, this guy killed himself with 2 bullets to the head. this guy died while canoeing. Oh my God, this guy died in his hot tub. And then, oh, whatever you do, don't get on small aircraft. So that's when I decided I'm just going to call myself the crackpot. So I'm crazy. Just call me a crackpot. You don't have to kill me. That was always the joke in the beginning. And so I guess it's kind of stuck. And, people can call me whatever they want to call me. Just, I like flying small aircraft, so don't kill me in them.
Don't find yourself locked in a jail cell under 24-hour surveillance on suicide watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, that's ongoing this week, but we're not going to hear too much about that, I don't think. Man, my mom, I love you, Mom. I'm going to throw you under the bus a sec here. My mom, super intelligent, very educated, emergency medicine physician, ran one of the most prestigious emergency departments in all of America. In fact, all of the world. Used to get flown around the world to go save people. I asked her what her thoughts were on Rittenhouse, and she said exactly what you said. Like, we killed some black guys, right? Or asked her about the Waukesha, where a SUV ran over people, right?
Yes.
And she's like, oh, yeah, you took a wrong turn and accidentally killed some people in a parade.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is, I love her. I love you, Ma. And we had these conversations. So this is nothing I haven't said to her face already. But she suffers from the Gelman amnesia effect, right? Which is where you can read a news article like in the Washington Post that's about something you're an expert in, and you can be like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And that's an out fucking right lie right there. And then turn the page and read something else and be like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. And not remember that they're literally lying to you. And the only time that they're lying to you is when you're an expert in that field. And you mentioned the 40% starting to chip away, and think, oh, maybe this isn't such a good idea. What do you think causes that? Because I'm trying to get it to happen to my mom, and rational thinking and evidence and all that doesn't really work for me. And I've written a book called Democrat to Deplorable. And to me, to make that transition, it took personal trauma, right? It took like something that was so bad that I was forced to reconstruct my worldview in a way to have it all make sense, right? And then it opened me up to new positions and new thinking. Of course, the world also changed dramatically since the 70s and 80s as well. But what do you think is the 40%? Do they need a traumatic experience? Can they be chipped away? Can they be reasoned with? What is it going to take in order to peel more people off that middle so that we can, get out of this, and also think about what it's like for the future, for the next time they roll this out? Because I've heard on your show, you're always like, well, here's the next one. Here's the next one. So what do you think about that?
Well, first, I'm afraid I have to diagnose your mom not as part of the 40%, but as part of the 30%.
Indeed.
So as we just discussed, that's not an easy nut to crack. We need to get to 40%ers around her. This is the question I asked the professor multiple times. Said, what do we do, professor? I know how it's hypnosis. Can't we just do, and you, at the sound of my voice, you'll be awakened, 3, 2, 1, waking, and everyone's fine. He says, no, that's not how it works. He says the only thing we can do is build parallel networks to survive the totalitarian state that is being created, not necessarily by design by the people who are doing it, because these people are also just in the mass formation, like Jacinda down there in New Zealand, Dictator Dan in Australia, but also Cuomo in New York. Now we have we'll see how the new mayor does, but all of these kinds of people are under the same hypnosis. So by speaking our truth continuously, by not stopping. So, Kyle Rittenhouse was, I think, a very important moment. Well, actually, a couple of important moments. It's not longer really in the news cycle, but parents revolting against school boards. This was a very, very important moment, because as suppressed as it was in what we call M5M, the mainstream, as prevalent as it was online, and you saw it. It was all colors and creeds and races and religions, and we're not blind, but we're hypnotized. And look, we're in our own mass formation, undoubtedly, of smaller proportion, everyone has some programming that's running that we didn't put there, and it's probably malicious. So you just have to keep speaking, and particularly about these types of instances where someone may, like I saw Anna from Young Turks, I think, and she was like, holy crap, I thought he had shot some black guys. I didn't know what was going on. And she even said it like that, by saying black guys softer. And I can't believe that. I got to consider my sources. Now, that's a break right there. So she was more 40% than 30%. And she may influence Chunk. What is his
I think it's Chunkhead.
Chunk. Yeah.
Chunk.
Chunk.
It's
we said Chunk.
I didn't get
I'm so
into
bad
this.
at names that we just come up with horrible nicknames for everybody, just really rude, which, by the way, is the only other way to combat totalitarianism is by mocking. That's the only thing that works. This is why, cartoons are so powerful, caricatures, mocking people, doing that is really, it comes across as childish sometimes, but once it gets into the lexicon and everyone's just using terms, and Trump knew that. Oh my God, did Trump know that? But we were calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas 10 years ago. Once Trump started doing it, we had to stop people. And we're like, you look like a bunch of Trumpers. Well, we actually were doing that a long time ago. It's fun. It works.
It is. The mocking is really important. It does look childish. One of my friends out there, James Lindsay, he even takes on a whole new mocking persona to just mock and make fun of and be childish and even idiotic. Your mom jokes and all this stuff, just to unnecessary profanity. I mean, just to make these people look stupid and idiotic, because that is really the only effective way we have with nonviolent
and doing it with their own words. That's what the No Agenda show does, is that we play 40 to 50 news clips or clips from the media every show, and we just mock them with their own words. Now, sometimes, we put more comedic effort into it than not, but I mean, just listen to what they're saying, what they're really saying. And often it's better to listen. We're audio only show, just to listen, not see the video. And you hear even things that we didn't hear. At the beginning, like the first 2-3 passes, like, holy crap, can you believe what they just actually said? Yeah, and I believe that, people will tell you the truth when they're speaking. It's coming out, it's like Freudian slip, whatever. You just got to listen to what they're really saying.
Okay. I've been listening to the show, and you guys pick up on the subtlest tells. And
like little chuckles,
little
laughs.
chuckles, little pauses. And man, you guys are spot on. I got to say something though before I dig back into this question. Cenk Uygur, or whatever his name is, I got into this media thing, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. So I had no idea that this guy was ever sane, respected, or that people I know and respect worked with him or whatever. I heard Dave Rubin worked with Young Turks, like all these guys. Michael Tracy, I thought, worked with them too. I had no idea the guy ever had any credibility at all, because to me, he's just a bumbling buffoon, and it blows my mind. I'm on Tim Pool. I'm like a recurring guest on Tim, and he's always talking about how, Cenk was this or that, and he still talks about him as if he's relevant. And I was like, wow, that guy is such an idiot that it blows my mind that people I know and respect were actually affiliated, worked with, respected him, etc. So I get why they're kind of triggered, right? Like, I'm triggered when David Frum says something retarded, because I don't like to say that word anymore, but still, when David Frum says something stupid, because I once thought he was credible, right? Like years ago, I thought he was kind of credible. And now every time he says something, it just triggers me, because it reminds me of that time that I thought that he was credible, and I'm embarrassed by it. So maybe there's a little some of that going on with people in Cenk Uygur or Uygur or whatever, because I don't know why he gets any airtime at all from any of us at all, except to mock. It's pretty funny. So
we actually have rules like that, like a certain people. Now, these rules are meant to be broken, but like no Rachel Maddow clips, no clips of John Kerry. It's never good. It's always too boring, no matter how relevant it is. Now, again, these rules are meant to be broken, and oddly enough, no Tucker Carlson clips also. Like, no, we got to find other things. I watch most of my viewing sessions, which is a lot, MSNBC and CNN. I mean, that's the messaging arm of the elite. If you want, and and read the New York Times, read the Washington Post. All the other stuff, I know where to get. I don't need to read, some other, like the Wall Street Journal to know that there's another side to stuff. It's easy enough to find. Most of these stuff are, it's based on facts.
Right.
You can go look at affidavits online. It's really crazy how much information is on that internet thing that is not on Facebook or Twitter. And you just have to search a little.
What annoys me again about mom, sorry, mom. She says that I will,
Dude.
I will, and because this is endemic, right? It's everybody. She's like, I won't trust something I read until I see it in multiple outlets. Like, mom, they all report the same thing that comes from the one place that's reported on an anonymous source who was lying in the first place.
No, it's people familiar with the matter or people familiar with the president's thinking. This is my favorite term. This is New York Times. People familiar with the president's thinking. Okay.
Now, do you think, and we get into this with Tim a lot, dumb or diabolical? Are they just stupid and think we're stupid? Are they stupid and think that that's a credible source? Or are they diabolically using uncredible sources and bullshit to manipulate the narrative and control all of us? Or is it somewhere in between? Because I'm often known for creating these binary choices that aren't always the only
Well,
choices.
it's neither. It's cunning. And it's cunning in a manner that, first of all, everyone's looking out for their, as we say in the old country, iedereen zijn eigen hachie verdedigen. So everyone's protecting their own plate, their own meal, their own food. So in big media organizations, and I've worked in a few, and Viacom, MTV Networks, that was certainly a big media organization, particularly when I came in right around when they were on basic cable, and then they split up. They had a news division. They really separated the studio operations from the office, and the bureaucracy came in, and they would monitor everything we would say. And there were certain things you just did not say. And just a stupid example, which has nothing to do with a narrative, but as a DJ kind of guy, I'd talk about the VMAs. Stop. All right, Adam, we have to say Video Music Awards. You can't say VMAs. Okay. So now 20 years later, it's VMAs, everything. So that was, and so you would know, you just don't say that. You don't question. There were things you did not say about the big artists at the time. You did not make any joke about Michael Jackson whatsoever. No fucking joke. I made a joke about Richard Marx's hair once, and it was, as a hair guy, by the way, I felt it was okay to make a joke. It was in the script. It was the top 20 countdown. It was like Richard Marx and his hair at number 18. It's literally a throwaway line like that. That motherfucker went to try and get me to get fired. He went all the way to Rick Krim, like the top of the executive chain, and then he was just excoriating me everywhere. It's like, wow. So all right. So now from now on, we know let's not make a joke about Richard Marx's hair because that's really sensitive. So these things permeate, and then truths become just what they are. A story that it's really interesting now that I'm 57. And I've seen so much history written around me incorrectly, factually incorrect, but know that will be the history, that it's very concerning, and you have to question everything. So the very fine people in Charlottesville, it's a half a quote, it's out of context, but that will always go. I mean, I heard it again on some montage on NPR, to play the very fine people quote. And it's just, that will forever go in history. That's going to stick. It's almost like Dvorak. We laugh about this a lot. In the 80s, he said, the meme goes, Dvorak said that no one wanted a mouse. What an idiot. Ah! But what he really wrote at the time was, there's no evidence people want to use this, which of course was completely true. There was no evidence people wanted to use a mouse. They were keyboard wizards. We had command lines. We didn't want this slow thing. But that becomes the truth. And sadly, he will also take that to his grave, and I will accentuate it when I do the eulogy.
Man, when you have personal experience with people lying and manipulate the narrative about you, it really brings to light all the times that they're lying and manipulating everybody else out there.
And we saw that in the Rittenhouse court case. We saw how messed up the judicial system is with lying and cheating and all kinds of trickery. And I recall, I've been in court, multiple times, and one time early on with the MTV networks over MTV.com is another long story. But I remember their attorney presenting the facts, and we did discovery. I mean, I was bringing in emails on floppy disks and shit. I mean, this was a crazy ass lawsuit, and the way he presented those facts, I'm like, am I a bad dude? Did I do something wrong? I mean, it even confused me for a little bit. They're like, holy shit, if you present it that way. So, truth, words, spells, all of these things, we're learning about this. We're learning so much. And, we're learning about the corruption in government, the corruption in education, the corruption in all institutions. We're not zoomed out far enough, but because of my background and my history, I zoom out, I see this globally, and also because of No Agenda Nation, of course. This is not unique to Texas, to America, to North America. It's the entire globe where this is taking place. We're being presented with the connections, Bill Gates, World Health Organization, Scott Godley, FDA, Pfizer. I mean, all of these things are so clear. The final thing we need to do is we need to decorrupt ourselves, because we are also way fucking corrupt at this point. We lie. We are cunning in our lives, with our family, with our friends. We're dishonest, and that's because of fear. All this programming that has been punched into us, the fear of being kicked out of the group, that by itself being deplatformed, no longer welcome at Thanksgiving. This is destructive to human spirit, but we have to look at ourselves. We have to decorrupt ourselves. I put myself right up front with that, because I've only kind of discovered this like, holy shit, everyone's corrupt. Wait a minute. Then I have to be corrupt too. And when you start looking at it, you're like, yeah, sure I am.
Fascinating that you brought that up, my friend. First of all, man, we are so simpatico on so many issues. It's amazing. It's really wonderful to talk to you.
Likewise, yeah.
I've experienced all these things. I watched the Fine People speech live because I knew what happened in Charlottesville, because I knew people who were there, and I chose not to go. And then what happened? And then I wanted to see what Trump had to say about it, so I watched it live in real time. I've been to so many events. I was on the ground on January 6th. I wasn't at the Capitol, FBI, FYI. That's noted. It's in the media. It's confirmed. And so I've seen all these things happen, and when you see the lies of the thing that you saw firsthand, it does hurt, kind of. It does hurt. But I personally have come to a point where I am looking at my own corruption as well, and trying to figure out, because I got doxxed, I got fired. I lost the whole career that I had. I got fired for being a Nazi and a racist and all this stuff. And I started over from scratch, zero, in my 40s, dude, like nothing. And I'm now getting back to, like, my life, right? And now that the financial anxiety is gone, now that the all the shame and fear and nastiness around being doxxed and called all these names and having your reputation tarred and all that, now that all that's gone away, now that I'm getting married to my longtime lover and girlfriend and partner, and now that my kids are growing up and they're all amazing. I mean, they're just so amazing, the kids.
You're becoming a free man again.
I'm becoming a free man, but then I look and I feel inside, though, I'm like, yet somehow I should feel like I'm floating on a cloud all day, right? Like, I got everything, dude. I got everything. I got a beautiful, loving wife. I got beautiful, amazing kids. I have financial independence. I get paid to speak my mind, say whatever I want, except for just a couple of things on YouTube here. And yet, man, there's a little something missing. And I have been returning to, like, I've been reading the Bible. I've been praying. I'm not a Christian. I'm not baptized. I'm not all the way in, but like, I'm like, I called myself Bible curious. I'm like, I'm toeing around, and it's because I think at this point where I realized, one, I have all the answers, all the boxes checked. Why aren't I still feeling fully fulfilled? And two, looking around at all the corruption, as you said, about in everywhere and everyone, myself included. So what are you doing, sir? This is a question that comes up, people, when we get into a good conversation here, because this is the real shit. What are you doing, Adam? And how have you addressed the corruption in yourself, your words, and what's your state there?
It all comes down to community. By the way, your story and seeking out Jesus, God, religion is not unique. I'm hearing this a lot, and many friends and family of my religious experience was just not good from the beginning. Even though my whole family is pretty much Catholic, I would say, but the branch, our branch that went off to the Netherlands with my parents were like perfect, like older hippies. And so they got really into Unitarianism. And what that meant was on Sundays, we'd have kind of like a get together with a couple of families who were Unitarian. And that was okay. I could kind of hang out with the kids. It wasn't really clear what we were doing because it wasn't really like a Bible study thing. And then the killer just was for me is we had to wake up one day at 3 a.m, drive for 2 hours, drive up to a little hill. The Netherlands is very flat, so I had to go way far out to find a hill. Then to watch the sunrise with this group of families, and then they played on a cassette recorder, Cat Stevens' "Morning Has Broken." And that broke my spirit, really. I'm like, this is the worst song. I hate this. This is no good. That song is still triggering for me, although the going to a hilltop now, of course, is something extremely desirable. But what I've found is being able to work with honesty with other people who are honest on projects that are honestly meant for good is incredibly fulfilling for me. And I when I'm getting back from people and just the success that I see other people having, it's an extreme form of cleansing, because it's not what happens. Interestingly, is monetarily things just take care of themselves. I actually stopped worrying about money in, I want to say, 1993. And that wasn't because I had it. In fact, quite the opposite. I got fired from MTV multiple times, usually because I wouldn't cut my hair. And then one time, the producer called me and said, "Bro, you're fired, and it's real this time. They really don't want you back." And I had a couple other things going, like I had some radio stuff, but I had a mortgage. I had a 5,000 square foot home in New Jersey. I had a 2-year-old daughter. I mean, and I had like $700 in my bank. I'm like, oh, okay. And I was flipping out for a week. And I didn't want to tell my wife at the time, and I didn't want to bring stress, but I was just it was so bad. What can I do? I had no options. I couldn't see things. And then I got a call and they said, "Well, dude, they couldn't find anyone to do it like you do. So they'll hire you back for 5 times your price." And at that moment I said, all that worrying I did not change the outcome. I know that was just not worth it. And there's always a way, and maybe it's divine. I don't know. Maybe it's a plan. I don't know. But I took that as, to live my life, I have to stop worrying about that shit. So it's been up and down, and it's been great. And I've always lived accordingly. It's like, oh, things are good now. Okay, a little tighter. It's all been kind of good. And I found that it was usually proportionate to the pleasure I had in doing what I was doing. When I'm doing something I really love, and there's so much less worry. Now, is that an overall belief in mankind, in brotherly and sisterly love? Is it Jesus? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. This is definitely something else going on. And there's enough evidence of what humanity can do. And we're connected. We just skipped a step. We had a whole generation that didn't learn how the internet works and what it's put together by, and that it's not just these apps on a phone. It's not just Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's not just for this and that. It's not just Google. There's other ways, and more importantly, and this is changing, but still, the dopamine induce hits of likes, followers, subscribers. If that were to go away tomorrow, if that would become law, you're not allowed to have likes, follow, subscribers, the whole thing would be over. People wouldn't give a shit anymore. No way to measure? Okay, then I don't care. Then it would go back to what we're doing. There's no real way to measure how many people are really listening or watching to you. We don't really know. I have an indication for what No Agenda does, but only after 14 years of analysis, and it goes way beyond some log file. This, no way. Technically, it's not possible. Closed systems, yeah, you can get a lot better at it. Is that YouTube number under your video? Is that true? I don't know. It could be anything. I've seen some crazy things happen with YouTube view numbers. So, that's the mechanism that truly keeps us trapped, is this 15 minutes of fame or whatever it is. Whereas you can be so appreciated and feel so loved as a storyteller, even if it's just your personal story, when you're in the right group and not when you're controlled by an algorithm.
Very powerful stuff there, man. Living in the moment, forgetting about the future, or not worrying about the future, not worrying about the past, trying to stay most present and acting with intentionality is a flippin' superpower these days. In fact, it's been a superpower forever. But given this whole economy that you just described, and the attention economy, and all the things that we get incentivized to, well, it incentivizes us to double down on things that we're already programmed to do, which is why it's so freaking powerful, right? To the extent that you can block all that out and just stay right there and look around at what you have and who you're with and love them and love where you are. There's some 60s song that's coming to my head. I can't remember what it is, but
I do have help. And I would say this special vape helps me focus very much on the things that I love and I love doing. Especially when there's so many. It's not that I need that to focus, but it does help because there's so much noise that tries to get in, that is competing on every screen with every flicker of a light. Everything is competing for your attention, and to be able to really absorb what's going on. Yeah, you have to be in a good state of mind, man. You do. You have to chill, but also walking with the dog. Hell, I love walking with the dog, just outside, early morning. That stuff. That's good.
It really is. And, my wife's, I call her my wife. We've been together so long. I'm committed to marrying her.
So I keep telling everyone that Tina and I have been married for 6.5 years, but that's when we met each other. It's been 2.5 years that we've been married, but that's 6.5, baby.
So my wife, every time she asks me to, hey, you want to go for a walk with the dog? My first instinct is, oh no, babe, I got all this shit to do. But the moments I can cut through that and be like, yeah, and go for a walk, it's like, oh, thank God. Thank God I did that. Thank God I actually got out. Now, if we're living in medieval times, I think prayer and religion and Jesus and all of this is really important, because life sucked real bad, dude. There could be a Viking show up at your house any second, chop your head off. You might starve to death next year. And now we're talking about like an overstimulated society that's programmed with abundance. It's a different environment, but at the same time, we still have to be able to come back to who we are and to block all that shit out. And for me, it's been exercise, weightlifting, keeping myself in good shape, and some daily prayer and meditation, and then the community building. Now, I wanted to touch on something you said earlier, which was, I always say this, and I don't think people believe me, but I say the most powerful social media networks are built offline. It's not how well can you do the Twitters and how well can you do the YouTubes and whatever. It's, can you actually make a personal connection with somebody, and then find that you have mutual beneficial interactions and enjoy each other's company, and then want to end up working together. And then if it looks out there, guys, if social media to you looks like it's like a small cabal of friends getting together and like deciding what's going to be out there and how it's going to work, it's true. It is. There is. People get together, they become friends, and then they form a network. And that is where the power is in the personal relationship. So, Adam, you're obviously promoting this. I'm trying to promote this, but it's worth saying again, like, guys, use the social media connections that you're making to make real world connections. If you can leverage this into that, it's worth it then.
The important thing that we did in that regard is we set up the Mastodon server. And the reason, and I did the same for podcasting 2.0. I didn't know what a great idea that was until now in hindsight. And maybe it's even better to use podcasting 2.0 as the example of Mastodon. So Mastodon, you can set up a server. It's open source. It's actually under the hood. It's a whole bunch of different technologies. That's just a version of it. There's Pleroma. There's GNU Talk. I can't remember what it was called. I mean, there's all different versions of this protocol. And it is, in fact, decentralized to the degree where you have your own instance, as it's known. That's a server. You can have your own accounts. You can determine you can set your own permissions. Your own values can be reflected in what people can or can't do. And then you can federate, as it's known, with other instances. So you can follow people from another server. Now, that whole community could say, we don't like you guys, so you're not allowed to see our shit. They can do that. We could do the same. Or we could just leave it completely open. But at a certain point, you want to throttle some stuff because it's just things that aren't appropriate for your community. It's very effective to do this. It works just like Twitter with one significant difference. No algorithm. There's no, it's chronologically organized. So you come in, new stuff for you is at the top. You go down when you hit something you've read. That's it. It's not going to start. You're not going to have something go ding and there'll be 5 more things to look at. Not going to happen. So when you have this peace and this calm, this is where online relationships actually take form very well. In a typical open source or open project like podcasting 2.0, these discussions would happen amongst technical people on a GitHub repository where they'd post issues and comments and they have threads, but a lot of it will be technical. In fact, when it gets into the philosophical of interfaces and functionality, sometimes it goes off the rail on the technically oriented GitHub. So we have that, but we also have podcastindex.social. And this is where everyone can just kind of, have their own interactions with each other, bouncing ideas off of each other without interruption from algorithms that are intended to, conflate an argument or a disagreement by putting more conflating shit in there. It doesn't have that. That's the main purpose of an algorithm, is to keep people going. And here people post something, reflect, come back, and then, maybe there's an answer. It's not all this immediate stuff. It is an outstanding way to create community that translates right to offline. You're so in each other's thinking in this type of environment. It is one of the most important communities or technical things a person can become part of. And you can set up your own for your family. You can do it on an old laptop. You can run it off your cable modem, literally. It is, but it's only for people who understand that it's not going to be about your likes and your follows, etc. It's going to be for conversation, for community, sense of community. And there's all these sub communities that develop in there, and some have gone off and set up their own instance, just for they want to talk a little bit more about other things. They want to have that more tightly integrated in their group, but I can still follow their conversations if I want to. This is a way forward. This is, in fact, Jack Dorsey told me that this is something that he's really thinking of, and I think he's probably going to do something with this outside of Twitter, depending on whatever restrictions he has. Have
you interviewed him? Are you friends with him? Like, what is that?
It's very interesting. I did one of those. Someone was impersonating me, and with Adam Curry with one R, and this person was basically blocking me, replicating my account, but then DMing people with some crypto scam. So very annoying. So I reported it, and then Twitter came back and said, "Nah, no, that's not valid. He's not really impersonating." I'm like, okay. So I did one of those, "Hey, at Jack, this is fucked up," and he replied, which was kind of, I was like, "Oh, okay."
Wow.
And then he was following me. I didn't know that. And he said, "Well, I'll take a look at it. Actually, this is why we're federating," is what I said. And he said, I'll have someone look into this. It did get cleared up. He said, but I kind of agree with federating, and he put a link, something like Blue Sky or whatever, some project. Blue Sky is a little unclear what that is yet. So I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that was on my list of things to talk about today, which is like the evolution of the social media space. But I want to tie it back into your MTV days, and you talked about the special feeling that you had, and everybody who was participating in it had. Do you see a similarity in the social media space and the exciting things that we've got going on now versus that time? If so, can you also relate it to how MTV got fucked and stupid, and to how everything now is getting fucked and stupid? And then where are we going to go, and how are we going to make sure it's not fucked and stupid in the end? That's like 18 questions and a theme. There you go.
No, but it all ends with fucked and stupid.
Yeah.
So the one thing I've always been really good at, Jack, is leaving places at the right time. Probably when I smell the fucked and stupid. But if I tried to write the book, and I realized I haven't completed the last chapter, which is what I'm probably embarked on now. So I have analyzed this, and I've always been a pirate broadcaster. That's just always been my thing. I started as 15 years old. I built my own pirate radio station transmitter. I grew that out to, also I worked at a closed circuit hospital radio station, but really learned a lot of listener interaction since they couldn't go anywhere. We had a lot of fun doing patient interaction. But then one of the big pirate stations in Amsterdam, Decibel Radio. I mean, we were the kings. I mean, we were playing shit on the radio that was coming in from a Chicago warehouse, but they were playing polka on the official government radio station, popular radio station.
You talking about house music?
Well, Chicago warehouse, so Frankie Knuckles, this is
man.
Like, now we're talking 81. Nope. We're talking real early stuff. Yeah.
No kidding. So, dude, I didn't know that.
Madonna came to our station in 82 before, Jelly Bean helped her, and she helped Jelly Bean. And that album came out once before, and she was doing Hash Under a Glass in our studio. I mean, she was not Madonna back then. So, but we were the station where someone cool at the time, certainly, like Madonna, would come by and hang out. So, and we weren't getting paid or anything. It was just pirate. We were pirating. We wanted to play dance music. We wanted to play different stuff that wasn't available.
Wait, hold on. I got to interrupt you for a second. I did not know this. Dude, I was a house DJ in the 90s. I played Chicago house, Detroit house, Dutch house. Man, I loved all of it.
I did a show called Rave Radio. You got to look it up. Rave Radio.
My first publication was a rave zine to like an underground print publication. I'd pass them out at raves and at parties in the early 90s. I ended up DJing, promoting.
Now check it out. I had the show called, I had Rave Radio, and Roland Molendijk. I mean, all the big DJs now, all these guys are coming from Holland, right? So right. Roland Molendijk, he's this is from the Tiesto League. He's a little bit older. So he would send me a DAT tape because we didn't really have. I had a 56K frame relay. I didn't really have FTP servers that could do gigabytes, and he would mix two songs to two songs. Yeah. He would send that to New Jersey from Rotterdam. I would load it into Pro Tools, and then because those two songs mixed were like gems, masterpieces, not stuff I can do. Right. But then I would connect those blocks and then talk in between it, and then do it all digitally, spin it off, and then send a DAT tape back to the Netherlands to be aired on the radio. I mean, these were, and this was. So that's my thing. I've always been at the cusp of a new technology in broadcasting one way or the other. In fact, it was Carl Jacob, who was working at Sun Microsystems, and he's probably, I don't know if he's still on the board of Facebook, but he went on to be a very successful investor and smart motherfucker, who only calls me like, hey, can you give me Tiesto's name? I have a party. I want to invite him to. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, Carl. But he sent me a Sun workstation, a Voyager, beautiful machine. And I was still working at MTV, and he said, now watch this. And he played a song in San Francisco. It streamed through the internet and played on my computer, even popped up a little player because he was, directly accessing to the shell. And I was like, well, this is it. This is the beginning of broadcasting. That's why I left MTV. I saw that and I'm like, fuck it. Then I learned about the M bone, which never took off, but I did huge demos. The multi-packet, was it the multi-packet backbone? I forget what it's called, the M bone. And that was a way to stream high quality video through all these relay sites. It was a whole distributed architecture. We did the Mega Music Dance Experience in Rotterdam in 90, I don't know what it was, 5 maybe 96. And we streamed it on the M-Bone. And anyone who knows what the M-Bone is, who's listening to my voice, you are old.
Dude,
you are old.
My 1200s are right behind.
I forgot about the M-Bone. Damn it.
Good right behind anyway, this here.
But this just kept going. So it was so logical for me that I wanted to fix broadcasting. So the invention of podcasting started 3 years before podcasting, because I said to Dave Weiner, look at how we can delay time by downloading some media, a video or whatever, in the background on your computer on your then cable modem, always on. And it wasn't fast, but it was always on. So you can download it for half an hour, but don't tell the person who uses the computer until it's downloaded, and say, bloop, here's a new video, click play, instant gratification. That mechanism was built into RSS 3 years before podcasting. When I saw the iPod, again, this is my brain, I went, no, this is not a digital Walkman. No, this is a transistor radio. And I can put radio shows on this with that shit that Dave and I came up with, and we'll connect it all with an Apple script at the time. And then boom, when there's a new radio show, it will be on your iPod. It'll be listed in a little playlist, and you click it and you can play it. And it's radio by appointment, and it's going to change the fucking universe. And it did, I think.
Accurate. So let's talk.
I also thought we could change advertising at the time. That was my mistake. Short-sighted, young, inexperienced. Now I have realized we need to be without advertising. I'm not against marketing and advertising, but as a pure means of sustaining a community, it's a poor mechanism. It actually works against sustaining the community, because you're going to alienate people who don't want to hear it. There's repetitiveness, and there's honesty issues that come into play. Even if it's for a competing product, a competing toilet brush, it's still, we love talking about products, by the way, on No Agenda, because we go into them so deep, because we don't care. We're honest about it. We're not promoting anything, and we can really discuss a product. You don't see that. I mean, even on tech shows, they're not honestly discussing these phones, because that's all the tech shows are. They're not honestly discussing that. No, they can't. They can't piss off anybody. It's always pretty good, promising for the future.
Podcasting 2.0 is something I'm very interested in. Web 3, very interested in. I got to tell you, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out where Web 3 is going, the NFTs and DAOs, and I kind of get it, but I don't 100% get it yet. I know that we want to have everything be decentralized as much as possible and take the power out of the choke points, right? Because the choke points are where the network power gets limited. And if it's decentralized, well then, hey, you've eliminated choke point. That's a big obstacle for network power. The other one is signal to noise ratio. Not sure how to manage that just yet, but I know I have a lot of content creator guys that follow me and listen. So can you just give us like a general overview, if like a 101, if we can get guys that myself, other guys are listening. How do we move from this where I'm like, oh, go to Apple Podcasts, hit subscribe until Apple says you're toast. What problem are we trying to solve, and how are we solving it? And really, like, how do we do it? Because you are the king, and you're the one who's making this happen. So can you teach me up a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So podcasting 2.0 was brought to life for a very specific reason. What came out of it was an uncorking of technical creativity that had been bottled up for over a decade. Because when Steve Jobs said, Adam, are you okay with me putting podcasting in iTunes? And I went, yeah, of course. Had a nice meeting with him. I also said, here's the directory. And, because we had iPodder.org, it was a kind of distributed directory of podcasts, and I gave that to Apple. And I could have known it was a mistake when they introduced it, and the front page was all NPR, PBS. It was not really the Dawn and Drew show. It wasn't the Daily Source Code. I mean, it was in there, of course, and searchable. But I was so young and inexperienced, over the moon, in the spotlight. I just had a 1-hour meeting with Steve Jobs, one-on-one, personal, on equal footing with my hour with Quincy Jones. And
Dang.
And it just things were taking off. In hindsight, that was a mistake. It was an incredible error, because I gave Apple a lot of power by them being in essence the de facto on-ramp. You got to be on Apple because their index of all the shows was being used by almost every other independent podcast app in some form or the other. The only reason Apple had that open is because their app needed it to be open to function properly. So anyone could hit that API, but it wasn't really supported. It didn't have any cost. But also meant that there was no innovation. So all the things that Podcasting 2.0 has brought us, which is 15 new features, rotating images, as in chapters, transcripts, location, person tags, all of these great features, which we now have an equal amount, about 15 new podcast apps, and many existing apps are using pieces of it. That is just happenstance. The reason I called up my friend Dave Jones, and I've worked with him for 10 years on software projects that we've had great ideas, and he implements them right away, and they went nowhere. We use them for ourselves. We love our own little projects, and they're super cool and useful, but no hits. But all of it revolved around RSS aggregation, podcasting, show notes, structured data, all of this stuff. And so a couple things happened right around the time when I was on Joe Rogan 2 years ago. First of all, Joe announced he was leaving. That was interesting. Joe's leaving the ecosphere. So he's disappearing from podcast apps everywhere. Every podcast app you opened up, didn't matter if it was Apple or Spotify or Overcast or Podfriend, it would have Joe Rogan prominently featured, because that's the number one podcast. That just went away. But then Apple also decided, in concert with Facebook and Twitter and maybe SoundCloud, I can't remember, a couple others, to deplatform a number of podcasts. And so the X22 report and InfoWars, when that was taken off of Apple Podcasts, it also went away from a lot of independent apps because they were all connected to the Apple index. That's when I said, oh no, fuck that noise. You don't get to do that. So we just need, and by the way, it was, I think, Marco Ahmed, he was talking about, if there was an alternative database. Luke Vonderhelm in Finland said, hey, you should think about this. He's been around the block. He used to work at Nokia, and we go way back. And I called up Dave and I said, dude, let's just set up our own index. We'll let everyone be in there, unless it's legally, unless it's totally illegal, something like the obvious ones, but really looking at the Constitution, threatening, etc. This kind of stuff but really we don't care. It's just pointers to everything. And so now we have 4.5 million podcasts. A lot of it is shit, of course, but we have an open API, so anyone can build an application. You can use, for web services. We have people doing stuff for car systems. We don't care. And just donate value for value. We need to keep our servers running. Send us money. Along with that came the second problem, deplatforming of money. We're seeing it everywhere. It's not broadly portrayed in the media, but it's happening. PayPal, all people just getting kicked off of systems, right down to credit card processing. So I have my own history with Bitcoin. I've made my mistakes. I've learned from them, and I can comfortably say I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I am not a crypto evangelist. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, because Bitcoin is significantly different from anything else. And in fact, I believe it may be one way out of the mess. But what has always been promised to us is this concept of micropayments. Yeah, you'll pay for per paragraph you read. And my personal Bitcoin guru, well, I have a couple, Max Kaiser being one of them with Stacy Herbert, but also Dennis Parker, who I've never even met. Dennis, I'm sure it's not his real name. He's a Dutch Bitcoin consultant, I think. But he said, Adam, you need to look at the Lightning Network. So I dive into this, and we're in the end of summer during the first year of the lockdown pandemic, and I order a Raspberry Pi, and I get to work, and I learn this stuff, and I go, holy crap, this is scriptable money. We can do the micropayments. And with my 14 years of value for value with the podcast, it all of a sudden became apparent to me, knowing that people will gladly give you money if you ask them to do it. Why not just bake a little Bitcoin wallet for small amounts into a podcast app? When you hit play, you can determine every single minute how much money. So let's say you think every podcast is worth $1 an hour. I mean, no one can argue that. That's very low money. So you can just split that up, and every minute of 60 times an hour, a little piece of that, a fraction, 1/60th of a dollar, will go to the podcaster directly from your wallet to the podcaster, not via any other system, directly. That's it. But one-to-one. So when you're playing, you're actually giving value back at your predetermined amount while it's happening. It's a simultaneous transaction. You're getting an MP3 is just ones and zeros, and they're sending value back, actual money in ones and zeros. Now, if you're listening, all of a sudden, holy crap, that was hilarious what Jack Murphy just said. Boom, I'm going to hit the boost button. I'm going to send 50 cents or $1 or 150. Maybe I want to hold down the boost button and I can put a little message in. You're killing it, bro. Which then you can see on your end, you see the message, and you also know exactly when that happened because we send along the timeline information. But you don't know this person. You only know their alias that they can choose to put in or not. But I'll tell you, Jack, when you're watching your wallet, your podcast wallet, and you see 5 Satoshis, it's nothing. It's a fraction of a cent. 5 Satoshis, 10 Satoshis. Oh, there's 1,000, a boost. Someone at that very minute is listening and enjoying what you've done. It's an amazing feeling. So, and you can't interrupt that. So now you're not deplatformable. You can't be kicked off of the index, and you can't be kicked off of the money. So now we have everything we need for free speech. Of course, it requires a shitload of extra steps because we're not there yet. How do I set up my podcast for it? That part we're getting pretty good at. How do I get people to buy Bitcoin, then put it into a wallet, then understand what Lightning is? All these terms. That's up to you and me, brother. We have to educate our audiences. That's how podcasting grew. We used to say, hey, man, find the little RSS orange icon, right-click on it, select copy link, then go to your podcast app and your podcatcher, then add feed, now paste it in there. And oh, by the way, you might get all the old episodes, might download and crunch your bandwidth for a bit. But that's the curve we went through. So it's been growing. But already there's at least 1 million Satoshis a day floating around in podcasts being sent from listeners to podcasters. That's, you're getting up there in the amounts. You're getting up to, we'll soon see thousands of dollars flowing through this system. And there's a whole bunch of really interesting things that have come along with it, but this general basic concept of, will you please support what I'm doing by using a better podcast app, of course, newpodcastapps.com, and just whatever you think the show is worth to you, just stream that back to me. And if something's really great, then you can hit the boost button. We've had people boost us $300 in one go. It's been crazy. I mean, it's really, the system is working. Now, because of the adoption curve, it's just going to be a while. But I think if you can get 1,000 or 5,000 people who can see, you can do the math. You can do the math. Whatever you need will come to you. This delivers upon the promise of true free speech. You have to have free money or freedom of money at the same time. Otherwise, you just can't have it just doesn't work that way. We need to have that. And that is ultimately the problem with all media, is it has to be paid for. They've chosen for certain models. The Silicon Valley model is very destructive for humanity. We were primed by the destructive nature of the advertising model. Not so much that there's dishonesty, but also the advertisements themselves. You cannot discount commercials telling me that you will never get laid if you don't drive this truck or don't drink this beer, or etc. That's mind control. It really is. So we need to be mindful of these types of business models, because they don't always, well, we all know the old adage, you're probably the product. Well, yeah. So now these are, in my definition, DAOs. These are distributed autonomous organizations that support. We've taken it one step further. I'm very proud of this. This is the distributed digital royalty system. And the way it works is, first of all, you can control everything. That's the whole point. You can manage where your money goes, where your Bitcoin goes, but you can also manage a split. So you can put in your feed, for everything that comes in. Let's say you have a co-host. So I want 40% to go to me, 40% to my co-host, 5% to my mom because I rag on her all the time. And, then I want another 5% to my top promoter. So we have Dreb Scott. He does the chapter work, which requires him listening to the show, setting points, getting images, putting those in. He gets 5% of every show that I do of chapter work, of payments that come in, and it goes directly. It's not through me. The wallet, the way we set up the system is the wallet says, oh, it's time to send 100 Satoshi payment or whatever, because it's 1 minute has passed. It'll send 40 there, 40 there, 5 there, 5 there, 10 there. And the app also gets a piece, because app developers had no incentive to develop apps. What? So you can sell it for that Silicon Valley pricing of 99 cents? It's very, very hard to make a living developing software in that model, particularly if Apple or Google Play Store will take a major chunk of that change. So it's all early. Excuse me, it's all early, but it's working. The flywheel is spinning. Don't give up any other revenue avenues you have right now, but start integrating this. Tina and I are actually talking about starting a podcast together. It's going to be full on, no PayPals, no nothing, all value for value. Just to experiment with what we've learned about podcasting, and maybe come up with something fun that will be supported by a community, which she brings her own community too. So it's interesting to see how that'll play out. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to get started, if anyone wants to get started as a listener, I would just say try a new podcast app, newpodcastapps.com. Just look at all the different features they have. If it has a wallet, the one you select, they all have different ways of helping you onboard, and they'll show you which podcasts are value for value enabled. It's thousands. I think we're at 4,000 or 5,000 probably now. So it's a fraction of the universe, but it's a very good start. And a lot of these are, of course, Bitcoin podcasts, freedom podcasts, this kind of stuff. And I think yours fits perfectly in this moniker. Mo Facts with Adam Curry, another one where we're pushing it very, very hard. And if you have a podcast and you want to enable yourself, it's actually not that hard of a process. It doesn't cost anything. You go to value4value.io. That's value number 4 value.io. It even explains how the same system can be used for music, for audiobooks, for virtually anything. We're focusing on podcasting because that's what's out there and that's what we know. But already people are planning album releases using the same digital rights management system, the splits, and they'll just use their individual tracks as episodes. And there will be developers who will create apps that specifically show music, coming all from the same basic ecosystem, which is completely open. Anyone can join, anyone can develop. You want to go to podcastindex.org. If you want to be a developer, you just sign up, you get your keys, you can jump right in.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's amazing to hear all of that directly from you in such a logical and laid out manner. It's helped me understand a little bit more what's going on. I mean,
Did it?
I
Do you really understand, or are there questions? Because I find it very hard to gauge how well the explanation is because it's not an elevator pitch.
right. No, I totally get the idea of well, what's interesting is I've interviewed John Robb, who is one of the original creators of RSS, and
I
I've
know
also.
John Robb very well.
Oh, do you? John Robb is a great friend of the show, great friend of the
He's
Liminal
a
Order.
military strategist, is he not?
He is indeed, yeah. But
Yeah.
interestingly,
hmm
also developed RSS. And then also another guy I've talked to quite a bit, Jordan Hall, fundamental in developing DivX, which is one of the original video streaming codecs, right?
Codex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's fascinating is these guys who saw that then are also now cutting edge futurists. Like they can see the world happening and unfolding in 5 and 10, 15-year increments in front of us with incredible clarity. And the fact that they were both involved in these technologies and have this clarity into
I,
the future.
I lost touch with John Robb. What is he doing now?
John Robb, he does the Global Gorillas. He does a Patreon basically, but I think he just spends most of his time doing analysis work and then just sharing it with the world. I think he's in a position where he can just give back to the world and spend time talking to people and writing and tweeting and giving his analysis. I think he's just a sort of independent. I'm pretty sure he sits on some boards and has done quite well for himself.
Yeah. He's
over
a
time.
smart motherfucker. He's very, very smart.
Yeah,
guy.
on top of being a special forces pilot and
Well, there's that annoying stuff. Yeah.
right, and being an advisor to the presidents and the guy who's in charge of all the military guys. I can't remember the name anymore. The
Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Joint Chiefs. Yeah. See, this happens to me when my brain gets old here. But anyway, I get it. And my first thoughts are, one is the onboarding process. That does seem to be the big obstacle.
Sure.
And in getting just the consumer level folks, just regular people who don't have time to figure all this shit out, to how easy it is for them to integrate this into their.
Well, it's really critically important for if you believe in what Bitcoin can do for humanity, as I do. And a large number of people, and they're in the 28 to 35-year-old range. I love them. I love working with them. And I believe in their vision. This is a great way to get people into Bitcoin because it has a function. It's not just put it in there and watch the silly chart and get nervous if it goes down and happy if it goes up, and then, I'll try some shit coins. I'll try some other things I'll buy. And then this is not a good thing. What we're doing is what's called stacking sats. I mean, this is the beautiful thing about the project. So we maybe have collected, because we also get 1% of the transaction for using the index. It's all voluntary. People give it gladly. So we've amassed maybe $25,000 or $30,000. We use it for liquidity for within the whole ecosystem. So we don't pay it to ourselves. It's used to make a lot of the network run more efficiently. But with every month that goes by, that value goes up. And every month there's more coming in. So it's all bits and pieces. It's 5 Satoshis at a time. But 10 years ago, that was really 0.000000000 penny. And now it's 0.005 penny. And that conviction that over time, and I have very low time preference, that in 5 years this will be very fruitful for us as the founders of the project, probably more to continue to reinvest that and to use it for more project, which we're now turning some of it back into little pools so we can have apps start off with 5,000 Satoshis already in the wallet so people can get a vibe for how it works before onboarding. So this is all part of the unplanned plan that just kind of seems to unfold before us as we do a podcast every Friday and come up with ideas, and then everyone goes, oh, okay, that sounds kind of cool. Let's do that. Right.
Yeah, man. The unplanned plan is where the real action is, at least in my experience. I try to set out these plans, and then you go just like this, dude. All this planning. And
that was good try, man. Good try. That
never
works with me.
In the first 5 seconds, we were totally off.
Well, what else is on your list? What did we miss? I'm happy to backtrack if there's
No,
something you really want to ask.
I want to go down this one a little bit farther. Like, was it Gleaming the Cube with Christian Slater, where he was like the pirate radio guy? Like, I've always had that. Always seemed really.
Yeah. What was that
I
called?
think it was Gleaming the Cube. I think it was called. Was that it? Or that was the skateboard movie.
No,
anyway,
something else.
It'll come to me.
People are now yelling at their computers.
Maybe somebody in the chat,
dude.
But
yeah, when he was doing pirate, took over a radio station.
Doing pirate radio. I was always I was a renegade DJ in the 90s. We used to set up parties underneath overpasses and stuff. I did the zine.
Sure.
Like, I have an uncontrollable urge to express myself, basically, is the bottom line. And I see this. Thankfully, I've come 180 degrees, well, actually 360, all the way back to my interest as a teenager in being able to do this. And I'm eternally grateful. One, for being doxxed. Now I'm grateful for that, because pump up the volume. Thank you, the chat.
Pump up the volume.
Pump up the volume. Thank you, guys.
It. That's right. Yeah. I don't have the chat open, but yeah, thank you. Of course.
I know, right? And so I've come all the way back to doing exactly what I'm designed to do, right? Is express myself and be a storyteller, and also ask questions. That's one of my main talents. So I'm very excited to figure out where this is going and how to make it work. I've also been buying Bitcoin since 2011, when I wanted to get on the dark web and do things probably that have gotten people in trouble now. And so
man, we tested that on the show. We were still laughing about it. Oh, this is Beanie Babies. This is bull crap. Look, I bought some Coke. They shipped it to the house. Holy crap. Can you believe that shit worked? But that was it. And then, but the worst part is I'd forgotten about him, and I was actually day trading on NASDAQ and doing stuff. I'm like, hey, I still have these 65 Bitcoins. They're worth $900. I'm selling them. So did that, but then Tina and I, we were in the lockdown, and we were talking a lot about all kinds of stuff. And I said, I don't want to make that mistake again. And Bitcoin went to 3,600, and she said, "Fuck yeah, dude, let's go in." So we've just been, building our position since then. And this is even before podcasting 2.0. But part of it all had to be, So I was keeping my eye on Bitcoin again. I heard about Lightning Network, all these things just. The path unfolded, was there. It was like, holy crap. Okay, let's grab it.
I'm with you. So I think the onboarding part is probably the biggest obstacle for the listener
people
side.
Need Bitcoin anyway. They need Bitcoin anyway.
So it's a public service. Even getting them.
You're going to need a Bitcoin. You're going to need some Bitcoin. Yeah. Please get some.
So the question I want to ask you, though, is on this, in addition to the billion of other questions, is, what do you think the societal outcome of this will be? What's the big impact of disintermediating both the media companies and the advertisers and the corporations, right? Like, if we're not watching pharmaceutically sponsored corporate media, and your favorite content creator, producer, interviewer, artist, writer, author, whatever, and you are directly connected and exchanging this value, the corporate media guys are out, the advertising guys are out, the corporations are out in general. That's a massive transformation, right? Because you talk about the mass hypnosis. The mass hypnosis comes through those avenues, right? Those are the channels of the mass hypnosis. So what is the big picture? I'm looking at the little picture. I'm like, hey, heck yeah, man. I'd love for my supporters to be able to pay me directly for what we're doing here. But and that will enable me, thank God, to keep doing this. Truly a blessing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the big picture, though? What do you think?
Okay. So zooming out, it's hard to do, but if you really zoom far out, the internet has fucked everything. It has really fucked newspapers, fucked the news business. I'm using this term expressly because they know it. Facebook has fucked news. Fucked them. It's so bad. That's why they're going after Facebook so hard. All the shit is collapsing. So you're seeing CNN now even touting CNN Plus streaming with all your favorites, Don Lemon. So because they know cable is over. People are no longer willing to pay for cable. Now we have exactly what Apple and Spotify want to do with podcasting. Unfortunately, it won't work. Now you have to have 20 different streaming subscriptions if you want the same diet. Well, people are just not taking that anymore. They're not interested. They've spent all this time watching television shows, old favorites, new ones. They learned how to binge. They learned how to wait. I remember Serial came out and said, no, you can't get the next episode until next week in the middle of binge and craziness. So people got maniacal about what's going to happen next. So these things all change the landscape. Influencers don't influence. Hollywood is no longer an influencer. In fact, Hollywood lost all respect. The veil was dropped during the lockdown as all these people who have a total persona created by themselves, or it's show business. I understand it. Now we saw them at home, and it wasn't perfect, and things were off, and they were saying stupid shit, and they were irrelevant. Television people didn't know how to broadcast from home. They couldn't figure it out. It was uncomfortable. This is where we accelerated. We were kicking their ass. I mean, everybody was just like, "Oh, these guys are." You can't even watch a broadcast. Everything was failing. The only way that it's still succeeding with the low numbers they have. I mean, these are horrible, horrible viewing numbers. I know what ratings are. I come from the 80s ratings in cable, which actually remind me to tell you that MTV was very smart what they did in getting away with music videos, but that's a different story. So it's broken. It's all broken. The next frontier, obviously, to finance that it's, as you said, completely pharmaceutically financed. The largest advertisers are pharmaceutical companies. Look at what they're advertising. Look at to whom they're advertising. Look at the audiences. The audiences are not young. This is the cord cutting. So it's over and done with, and they know it. So now, how do we remove the competition? Trying to remove Facebook, trying to mess with Twitter, all these different things. Their messaging system is broken. So there's a very unique opportunity right now. And it's still a window of, 5 years, 10 years, but there's a window for us to build the alternative networks. Because it's totalitarianism. There's no dictator. There's no one saying I got to go kill people. It's totalitarian. That always collapses. Call it, socialism, Marxism may be a part of it, but it's totalitarian. It will collapse. They will eat each other. We need to build networks outside of that. That's the only thing that will help us survive. It's our own schools. It's already taking place. It's already taking place. It's beautiful to see. The homeschooling networks in the United States are astronomical and very well organized. You can find, and you know this, you know about homeschooling, you know about charter schools. There's pros and cons to charter schools, but in essence, it's taking the law where, hey, we have the fucking right to educate our kids the way we want to. Your food supply, as a part of the overall dominance of corporate globalism, ultimately, it is more profitable for you to eat 3D printed meat made of soy. That is, in fact, what will be pushed on you. And more maniacal and truly happening before our very eyes is the central bank digital currency. When the government controls your finances through no longer a bank account, but through a digital wallet, they will control in and out. So, and it will be, Jack Murphy, too many steaks this month. You cannot buy this, but you can walk right over to your 3D printer and get your lovely soy steak. That's going to happen if we. I don't think it's even stoppable. It's huge. This is ESG is a part of this. The environmental social governance. This is all a part of the new asset class. I don't know if you followed this at all, but literally now they are figuring out ways to commoditize human beings. What you are worth as a human resource, how much you can perform, how much carbon you waste, et cetera, et cetera. It's this is a real belief. You're looking at religion. I'm connecting with humans in ways that surpass anything I've really been a part of. A lot of these people are transhumanists, and they really believe that that's the future, is to make people better with technology. Well, yeah, this is dual use stuff, right? It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. I think the past 24 months has shown us that people who are in charge are not going to necessarily operate in our favor. So local politics, very important. My generation, we fucked it up. I was living in the 80s and the 90s. I had the hair. I was on MTV. I had the big cell phone. I had the shoulder pads. I had the Rolls Royce. I don't care who's on the fucking school board. It's some idiot who probably couldn't get out of it. I don't care about who's running in my district for city council, whatever. It's fine. Now that shit matters, doesn't it? Because now we let that go. And this, I dropped out of college after 3 months, was not for me. And maybe that's why I didn't get a lot of the programming at the time. But what's happened in our educational system is atrocious. That has to be, I don't think you can change it. I think it has to be blown up. So of all the things that have happened, it's so beautiful for more people to see, oh my God, that's not exactly the way I thought it worked. And when it comes to money and banking and printing, and I have spent a decade working on understanding this. Experts in the field, many friends of mine have spent hours patiently explaining real money flows. I mean, difference between bank reserves, Federal Reserve. There's a lot of differences and nuances. Dude, the game is over. It was over in 2010. You know this of all people. The game was over. We beat the European bankers, so we still keep the dollar running, but it's over. We can't service the debt, and it has to end. And all that they can do, I think, is get us on a digital wallet with a central bank digital coin, and then start removing money. It's like, it'll be small amounts. It'll be, way behind the decimal. You won't notice it, but they'll just start removing your money in order to pay for everything. It won't even be a tax. It'll just be called deflation or whatever. Hey, man, Federal Reserve says this we got to do to keep everyone's universal basic income going. I don't know, but the game is up. It's up. You know this. You understand where you work. You understand probably not even all the shit either. How the real flows work and the real leveraging. You can't unwind that. You can't. It's ununwindable.
You've got the ununwindable financial markets, and then you've also got the fact. So that's sort of systemic, right? And then you've got the way that the institutions have been taken over. It hasn't been a top down. There wasn't just like a there wasn't like a new CEO came in and was like, this is the new way we're going to do things. It was first radical students in the 50s and 60s. Then they became assistant professors. Then they taught some people. Then they became tenured. Then somebody became, head of the department. And then they started producing more people who went into the corporations. And then these kids in the corporations started demanding things of their immediate supervisors, who then demanded it of the higher up. And then all of a sudden HR is now doing it. And then finally the last people to come on board were the CEOs. And that tells me that the takeover, the capture is you can't extract it because it's been fed from the ground all the way up to the top. If it was some guy that just came in and was like, this is new boss, new way, we could change that. But it's all the people that make up the entire infrastructure are actually demanding it because that's what they were educated to believe. And so it's part of their worldview.
We have to chip away at each of those pieces. You have the Texas Beef Initiative. Texas is unique. You as a rancher and a process, the beef, you can sell directly to the consumer. You don't need USDA approval. USDA and the processors are making it just, they're really not interested in. They want Cargill. These guys want soy-based shit. They don't. It doesn't behoove them to keep going with real animal protein. So we do need that, I believe, as human beings. So we got our freezer with Bitcoin with the Oshi app, OSHI. You can now buy direct from the cattle rancher who's using regenerative farming practices. You can go meet the guy. He's local. Look him in the eyes. Don't sell me some shitty contaminated meat, bitch. Like we used to do as men. If there's some problem with the product and you have to go to the Food and Drug Administration or the USDA, just go to the rancher and say, hey, I got a problem with your product. This is part of our corruption, by the way. That's the part we need to get away from, always finding a middleman. to solve our problems, like the cops or lawyers or whatever. That's true corruption that we need to work on. That's for your groups as well. Liminal group, it's like
Yeah.
we
No,
we can't we
absolutely.
need
No,
to stop relying on these third parties. It's pussy.
it is appealing to authority, appealing to a third party for justice, et cetera, et cetera. This is definitely part of a shift in culture that we've experienced over time. People have talked about honor culture giving way to victim culture, and part of victim culture is appealing to this other guy to come help you, come save you, whatever.
So we don't need to fix it, Jack, is my
No,
point. We need to
no,
live it. We need to live it with people who are interested in living it, where they're interested in. And I think cities seems like a death pit to me right now. Cities just doesn't seem like a good place to be. You don't have a lot of options. You just don't. And when you're out, and luckily now we can't, and that's one of the shifts. I mean, it's definitely happening. People are saying, no, I don't want to be in a city. No, I don't want to be in Silicon Valley. No, I want to move out, and I can work remotely. I'm willing to take a 25% pay cut. This is real. This is a real shift, a real change. They screwed the pooch on that. They really did, because people are now reevaluating what their lives are, and it's beautiful to see. And yeah, maybe we'll have to use Elon's military Skynet link thing, whatever. But okay, we can still use the evil tools in order to maintain and build our networks, and we'll be fine. We can take care of our own. The other stuff has to fall down by itself. And I don't know how much you and I will see of these new things coming to light, but the 28-year-olds, I'm doing this for them.
yeah. 100%. That is the white pill. Before I get there, I want to just shout out my man, Modern T-Man. Follow him on Twitter.
There you go. That's Texas Slim right there.
Texas Slim.
Beef Initiative.
It's exactly right, and it's a great thing going on. He is. He can tell you his association with me.
He's tripping out now. He's like, yeah, we got more marketing. All right, Texas Slim.
He's
preaching, man. He's making it happen. He's putting shit together. He's building these networks.
He's part of my network.
He's doing it on the street. Yeah, but they're going out, they're going out to Rainy Street in Austin and onboarding restaurants. Hey man, come on, get together. So we have these direct connections. First of all, you don't pay the credit card fees because we're using Bitcoin, Lightning Network specifically. Secondly, you can keep it in there, keep it in Bitcoin, grow it a little bit.
Modern T-Man, you asked, I delivered. There we go. White pill. I think the white pill in all of this is that it will be a better life to be directly connected to your meat producer, to have direct connection to your audience, to have direct connection to people that you want to associate with, disintermediated from advertisers, pharmaceutical companies, corporate media, etc. It will be a better life. You will have a better life if you can earn independently, you can live anywhere that you want, if you can learn how to develop your food and water sovereignty. This will be a better life than even what we had before everything got fucked. And now it's fucked, and it's going to get worse. But I think that the net result is going to be better. The reason why I preach networks over institutions, not only because institution is totally corrupt, but because networks exist for utility to the members. If there's no utility to the member, the network disintegrates, it's done. It doesn't just limp along, perpetuating itself with that as its main goal, like the institutions do, right? The institutions, they get a budget, they get power. They don't care if they're fulfilling the mission. They just want to be in power, and they don't care about you. They're going to be in power. Network, for example, if it doesn't work anymore, it just fizzles away because you can walk away from it, and it doesn't have a budget, and it doesn't have the power over your life. And so it's incentivized to return value to you, to be of utility. And I firmly believe, man, you should see some of my notes. Balaji has been an inspiration to me in a lot of this because he talks about the emerging network state. And I think about all the different ways, the liminal order, that's liminal-order.com, guys. The way that we can deliver the services and values that the nation state has been delivering over in historically, now corrupted and fucked, but in a future way. Education, health, security, entertainment, arts, media, culture, all these things can come from your network as long as you cultivate them and invest your time and energy in the right ones. And the ones that are suck, you just walk away from and they go away. So that's the white pill. That's a little bit of the white pill in this conversation. And we're up on 2 hours, so I'm gonna start winding this up. We have a part 2 built in because I've got a million things to talk to you about. We can do it again sometime if you've got time. I'd appreciate it. But is there
I got time now, man? Whatever you want to do.
well, is there a white pill, hopeful, futuristic sentiment that we can leave the viewers and listeners with now? Because a lot of the things we talked about kind of sound like they sucked. But a lot of it sounds like there's some good news coming. So what's your white pill version that your white pill story that you want to tell people? Because you're not a doomer and gloomer, jump off the fucking cliff. You're like, yo, this is gonna get good, man. What's your white pill story for guys?
I have great faith in humanity. I have great faith in America. I have great faith in Americans. And I'm very fortunate that I grew up in formative years in the Netherlands when it was a very different country. In fact, completely socialist. Up to, I think at the time, was 90% income tax. But, you had free university and free healthcare and all this stuff. But I moved in there as an alien, from the United States. But they were staunchly against a lot of America. In fact, being an American in the Netherlands was not popular at that time in the 70s. Crazy American, what you doing? Hey, fuck off! Hey, fuck off! So that's how they would speak to me as a 7-year-old twerp. And they didn't like commercial television. They didn't like advertising, but also processed food and fads. And look at these idiots. Get some sensible shoes, you dipshits. What are these Nike things? That's dumb. What, you go jogging now? What, you can't just work normal jobs? And, so it was kind of that very agrarian, very work focused, which was quickly become a knowledge economy. But the basics of that country were meat, potatoes, and a vegetable. And I worked in the fields, so I had experience with potatoes, with hay, with roses. I mean, I had farming, milking cows, shearing sheep, but also tinkering with motorcycles, crashing in fields. I mean, I had a very wonderful, very basic experience. You went to the butcher for your meat. You went to the grocer, to the groenteman, the green man, for your vegetables, and then you had the grocery. You had a store for other types of packaged goods, but that was frowned upon. We did everything naturally. I mean, the Netherlands still to this day, if you buy a toilet in a house, will typically have a shelf. So that's how the Dutch always made sure they were healthy, by examining their feces. So to this day, you will still find toilets in modern homes that have a shelf for you to take a look. Okay, now I can flush it down. I'm looking good. I mean, that's how basic this country was. And a lot of that is, you didn't get penicillin. You got to stick it out, son. That's good for you. You need some germs to practice on. Maybe that's why I have not caught the coof. There's who knows. So I have a lot of faith in the stuff that we've forgotten, that we jumped over, that we've automated. There's a lot of this shit just really works, and there's still brilliant technologies that we can use to our benefit. All of this, for the root of all evil is the love of money, or the desire, I should say. The root of all the evil is the desire of money, and that is. I mean, I've worked. You've been in higher academic circles. I've been in higher show business, which has always bled into political circles. These people live in a different world. They're not on our plane. It's not that they think they're better than you. They are better than you. Okay, that's just how they feel in their way. That's why Donald Trump. I knew Donald Trumps all over the world who were accepted by the elite of show business, even though he was just a commoner a-hole, but because he had a lot of money and therefore influence. So again, it all comes down to money. If you really understand money, which used to be clamshells, it used to be grains of rice, it used to be notches on a stick. The problem is there's always some asshole or group of assholes who make more of it. Hey, I can find these shells and I can there's Phoebe, there she goes. I run the Federal Reserve. I can print trillions of dollars, and that is all. Or conversely, the Roman Empire. Hey, I can clip these gold coins. So they always fuck with the money. Bitcoin is not possible to do that. It's set. We know what it's going to be. We know how much is going to be created. We know when it ends. It's completely scriptable. It's indefinitely divisible. It is a perfect money. The first time in human history, this should be front page news every single day. What has been done here has never been done before, unless I'm proven wrong. But it's been 11, 12 years now, and it still seems like it was meant to be attacked, but it can't be broken. And that fixes so many problems. We don't need to go to war. We don't need to. It's all transparent. All the problems not all obviously, but you can fix so many basic fundamental problems by just saying, no, your money is bullshit, and it is. And look what just happened to the euro with the German Bundesbond. Just dropped like a rock today. It's negative 5%. This is negative money. Come on, wake up, wake up, wake up. The reason we don't have it here is because of financial trickery. We're really negative interest rates, real interest rates. So don't get caught with your pants down. You can buy $10 of Bitcoin a week if you want. You have to buy the whole thing. What the fuck do you have to lose? Don't buy one latte. That's it. Just do something to support Bitcoin. Use it to keep things flowing. Use it with your food supplier. Use it any way you can. Be onboarding people all the time. The Bitcoin Standard by Seyfuddin Ammous is a great book to read. It helped me understand money and why Bitcoin is a great solution. There are millions and millions of people who are apolitical, pretty much, just in this to make this work. I think it's part of the solution. It's a big part of it, because the money, it's what always gets fucked. Go look at history. It always breaks down because of the money. And that's when wars come and horrible things. And it's just being manipulated by people we didn't elect. So that is supposed to be a white pill. You're supposed to feel really good about what I said. Somehow I saw in your face I had failed. But shorter version is Bitcoin fixes this, bitch. It'll be fine.
No, you're absolutely right. It just made me think of all the ways that we are governed by people who are not elected. The established, people call it the deep state, the administrative state, the technocratic bureaucracy, whatever it is. Our legislators don't even make laws anymore. We've got these guys that are in a desk in DC that make a rule, and the rule gets rolled out. My favorite example for all that is Title IX, the way they changed the student interaction on campuses just by issuing a fucking letter. Yeah. Just a letter. Just in 2011, they're like, you guys should be thinking about this a little bit differently. Here, do this. And it changed everything.
It gets accepted throughout the whole institution, and it's just the way it is. And before you know it, people consider it. Wasn't that a law all along?
Right. And then it changes society. I have a whole big chapter in my book on this. Democrats Deplorable. See, there's advertising everywhere.
I gotta read this. I feel bad that I have not yet read it, but man, I will.
I appreciate that. It's an easy read, actually. Well, very well written. People are telling me. Very well written.
Well written. Yeah. Well done, sir.
But there's a whole section in there about how this rule changing on the campuses especially changed the way students interact with each other. So some asshole in DC wrote a letter. The letter goes out to the universities. Universities change everything. That changes interactions between the students and ultimately changes culture.
What was the change between students? What were they not allowed to do, or what changed there?
So in 2011, they wrote a Dear Colleague letter, which changed their own interpretation of the existing Title IX laws, which were meant to provide equal opportunity for women in athletics originally. Right? This was the main goal.
Oh, right.
But they changed it to mean that they have to make it so that women can't be harassed in any way on campus. And then they also changed harassment away from a persistent and consistent abuse that prevents you from being able to be educated. They changed harassment down to like being uncomfortable. So now universities are responsible for making sure that women are not ever uncomfortable on campus. And if they don't do that, then they get their money taken away. So what did they do? They implemented all these new bias response teams and secret anonymous tip lines and all these ways
Right.
to report on negative behavior. And so now and then they recruited everyone into the all eyes seeing everything all the time network, spy network, basically, to make sure that nobody anywhere ever made a girl feel uncomfortable. And then they set up
Yeah,
all
and
these
that's
trials and
exactly
stuff.
how men learn. Men learn how to interact with women by those kinds of restrictions. That really teaches them a couple of good lessons. They'll be fine men later on, I'm sure. These
Right.
people are fucking insane.
Right. So what it did was is it made guys less interested in talking to girls because they're afraid of getting reported, going to these kangaroo courts where you don't even get to face your accuser, right? And they changed
And then we
the
call them incels.
yeah. They changed the threshold from like an overwhelming amount of evidence to just like a fair bit of evidence, right? So due process was stripped away. So now boys are being raised on college campuses to know the system is rigged against them. They can't talk to a girl without harassing them, and if they do, they're going to get kicked out of school through kangaroo court. Those guys are now who experienced that in the beginning are now in their early 30s, and you've got a whole generation of men that have grown up in this environment. So this is just one way that the deep state bureaucratic people can affect all of our culture just by making a rule change in Washington, D.C. Anyway, that's all a long tangent to get away from the point that you make, which is that the more that we can take control back into our own lives of how we get educated, how we get fed, how we get entertained, who we support, what kind of art we're interested in, what we read, what kind of music we listen to, and make the direct connection. This disintermediation idea was something I was introduced to in grad school. I went to Georgetown. I'm a trained globalist. I went to the School of Foreign Service there, and they were talking about disintermediation, and what the context there was in financial services, right? It was about putting people together and taking the banks out of the way by using the capital markets, which is what was the beginning of the mortgage crisis, right? Because the risk got distributed over the entire network instead of from the person who made the loan. Right. So, but it's interesting to me to see that this disintermediation concept is they were right about that, first of all, and second of all, that it is being applied to basically fucking everything that we've got. So this giant network that we've built, the internet, which fucked everything, but at the same time is also going to bring us into a white pill future, has really is stripping them out. And man, we could be in the death throes, the death rattle of the pharmaceutical media corporate nexus here. And maybe they know it, maybe they know that this is their last chance to really rape us all with the vaccine and then the Pfizer Mectin and all this stuff, because there's not going to have, I'm going to get banned now. They're not going to have the opportunity to manipulate all of us through the advertisement and the media controlled or pharmaceutical controlled media in the future. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the last grab, dude.
Well, something's definitely happening. It's really weird to have been talking about, FEMA camps and stuff like that, 15 years ago. I'm like, the Federal Reserve, they're going to fuck us all. They're just printing money and all this stuff. And then here we are. Now it's 15 years. Okay. Which actually is probably 5 years too late for whatever was going to happen. I mean, if you really look at the timeline of the COVID crisis, and you look at September 2019, when in Jackson Hole, we had all the central bankers sitting there in Wyoming, and they said, it's time to go direct, fellows, meaning the system really broke in 2010. You know this. The system broke, and we shoved a whole bunch of shit under the carpet, and we just can't, there's no way to get rid of it. So now we need to pass these exorbitant bills so we can have justification. I think this is where it gets fuzzy for me on the balance sheet. So we can have, okay, well, good. So we have some balance there for that shit we printed over there. We need another 2 million. They're already talking about another $1 trillion bill down the line. I mean, that's already in play. The debt ceiling has to be raised this week or next week. So all of these things are taking place. But there was something systemically wrong in September of 2019, and this was either fortuitous, happenstance, magic, black magic, God. I don't know what it was, but this came down. It certainly slowed down anything bad. I mean, look at where we're at, where the stock market is record high. I mean, clearly we see that this does not reflect the reality of our lives. It doesn't. This is the biggest wealth transfer in our lifetime. There may be another big one coming, but this is truly it. I mean, I go look at my buddy has a boat. Sometimes we go wake surfing on Lake Austin, and man, the shit that people have built there. Those homes there are now $50, $75 million. 10 years ago, 900,000. People have got submarines, seaplanes. They spend all their money on all the toys. They've got hoverboards on the water, all kinds of shit. It's been an enormous transfer of wealth. And I think really the actual money is kind of gone. It's out of the system. It's all been transferred into shares. It's not, there's no real money left for some reason. I think we've been hollowed out. So that can go on for a long time. I think that can go on for, another 5 or 10 years, maybe not. Pieces will have to collapse.
The thing that people don't realize is that the wealth transfer is not all happening at once, right? They take what they want and leave a bill. And that little bill will get paid through debasement of the currency and through inflation over time. And it's starting to happen now. It didn't happen right away. They all got rich. They all pumped up the system. They got the shares to do all the things. And then, whoa, it's like it came out of nowhere. But no, it'll never come out of nowhere. And we're all going to pay for it. Another
now
reason.
They're going to do share buybacks. That's the main thing that's coming is the share buybacks. That's going to be huge. So yeah, if you want to make some fiat fund coupons, get into the market and be with the enemy. But that rug will get pulled.
Yeah, don't be the last one in, right? Don't be the last one in. So another reason why Bitcoin is a good one. I don't know where it's trading today, but you should probably buy some. Not financial advice. I'm doing it myself. Just take that for what it's worth. Adam, I've really truly enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate your time and energy. I've learned a lot. I know the guys who've been watching, ladies who've been watching, have learned a lot as well. Ton of fun. Great to realize that there's other simpatico folks out there who are seeing things the same way, but are willing to do something about it and willing to do something positive and to take action, put yourself out there, take a risk, and do it with love, man, with love for the people and for connection and for community and for reaching that higher vibration that you find. And that's been one of the most rewarding things of the Jack the Brunch tour has been seeing the joy. I'm talking about real joy on people's faces from the minute they walk in to we have to fucking kick them out 45 minutes after it's closed and then go to an after party afterwards. The joy on people's faces of finally being connected with people inside that 30%, which I think is even smaller than that, inside of the network of people that see the world for what it is and want to make it a better place and aren't blinded and aren't black-pilled. Those are the kind of people that we want to come. Eyes open, white-pilled, and ready to do something to make things better. Adam, thank you very, very much. Is there some place that you would like to send folks so that they can get more Adam Curry and be a part of what you're doing?
Well, first, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It was nice to chat. I mean, I was kind of like, I had no idea where we would go, but you're absolutely right. The topics mesh. This is very important for the future of what we're talking about. Now we have a mesh between our two networks. It was already there. The overlap was there. This will get stronger. These are very important connections we make. I love what you're doing with the Liminal Order from what I understand and what I've read about it. And I am sorry I missed the Jack Brunch in Austin. I particularly like the call to mentoring. I think this is, now I'm at the age where I'm like, fuck yeah, this is exactly what needs to happen. And, you can learn a hell of a lot from the mentees. You'd be surprised.
Right.
Anytime anyone can do that. My buddy Mo is big on that too. What can you do? Well, hey, maybe you can mentor your cousin or your nephew or, someone else if you run out of kids to mentor. If mine's 31, I have a 24 and a 26-year-old stepdaughter. Yeah, that's really, really key. And to find me, How did you find me? So I guess Twitter at Adam Curry, but that's just an open mailbox. Adam at noagendasocial.com. That's not an email address. That's a Mastodon social media address. Or if you want to email me, Adam at curry.com. That's I've had that for about 27 years now. And anytime, man, anytime in fact, we'll probably, Tina and I, when we get our show rolling, we'll see if you want to dial in for a few. We'll chat the three of us.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. Happy to do it.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody who's listening. As you know, Adam said earlier, you got to right-click on the RSS, copy-paste. No, today we just say hit like, hit share.
Smash that like button.
Smash the button. Send it out. You got to do it to fight the fucking algorithm. Everybody comes on here and they're like, why Jack's being suppressed? Jack's being suppressed. Yes, on YouTube, they're definitely not working with me.
And try a better podcast app at newpodcastapps.com. It won't kill you.
Do that. And I want to speak directly to the audio listeners. They are the bulk of the audience. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers there. Far more activity on the audio feed than we've got on YouTube. So thank you guys, everybody listening on the podcast. Try a new podcast app. Do it. Get off the Apple one. I'm going to see about migrating my intentions into these new technologies. So thank you for educating me on that. And Adam, hopefully we have a chance to talk again. And until then, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody else out there. I'm Jack Murphy. This is Adam Curry, and we are out. On this show, we're driven by curiosity. Boom. We want to chart a path forward. Best people, best conversations. We're on a journey, and it's just getting started.